Why is everyone flocking to Sandy Springs, Georgia this year? Let's talk about that. In 2000, the population of Sandy Springs was 83,000 people, and in 2020, the population was 120,000 people. So in just that short amount of time of 20 years, the population increased by about 50,000 people. This is like mind-blowing, especially compared to some of the other suburbs of Metro Atlanta. And so the big question is, why are so many people moving to Sandy Springs? And one of those answers is because of the amount of economy and businesses and employers that there are in this city. You got to realize that there are many businesses that are moving here to Atlanta and to Georgia and to the East Coast in general. Major corporations from all over the United States are leaving the West Coast and choosing the East Coast, and so one of the major beneficiaries of that giant move is the Metro Atlanta area, and Sandy Springs is perfectly situated for those businesses. Companies like UPS, IBM, Inspire Brands, Mercedes-Benz has operations out here, Northside Hospital and Emory Hospital, those are some major employers in the Sandy Springs area. Also ADP and Equifax, these are all major companies that are here in and around the Sandy Springs area. And so not only are there a lot of people moving to Sandy Springs, but there are also lots of companies moving to Sandy Springs. And so it's like there is just constant growth happening in this city. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living. We put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs around Atlanta. One of the major reasons for why we have so many people and companies moving to Sandy Springs is its location. Sandy Springs is kind of like an extension of Atlanta. In fact, as the city of Atlanta grows and as more people move to Atlanta, the kind of growth, it sort of spills out over into the very nearby suburbs like Sandy Springs. Sandy Springs is just north of Atlanta. In fact, they border each other, and so very often people who want to be in Atlanta or companies who want to be in Atlanta but don't necessarily want the downside of Atlanta, they choose Sandy Springs because it's so similar, but you're not in the middle of all of the city life. Sandy Springs is still in Fulton County, and the feel of this city is still kind of sorta urban like Atlanta, but obviously the population of Atlanta is far greater than Sandy Springs. In fact, the population of Atlanta is like 500,000, maybe pushing 600,000 now, and so it's a lot more densely populated than Sandy Springs. And so very often this is why people choose Sandy Springs, and especially why companies choose Sandy Springs, as office space costs less. The real estate for businesses costs less in Sandy Springs, and so this is a big reason why so many companies choose Sandy Springs. When you combine that with the amount of influx of people, and you can start to see it's like people are here in the Sandy Springs area for the economy and for the job providers. And so all of these things go hand in hand, but there are also some other big reasons why we're seeing so many people moving here. Besides the distance and the similar feel to Atlanta, you also have the fact that Sandy Springs is right on 285 and Highway 400. 285 is like the interstate that goes around the city of Atlanta, and it's like the bypass for 7585. And so very often the people who don't want to be right there in the terrible traffic of 7585 in the middle of Atlanta, they use 285 to get around the city. But what this also means is that because Sandy Springs is at the 285 road, you can get around to the different parts of Metro Atlanta very easily. In fact, you're also at the intersection of 285 and 400 when you're at Sandy Springs, and so 400 goes north and south, and so not only can you get around the city very easily, but you can also get south into the city very easily, and you could get north out of the city very easily as well into cities like Alpharetta or Milton, or maybe like the foothills of the North Georgia mountains taking Highway 400. And so you have lots of options for being able to get around the metro area area when you live in Sandy Springs. If you're thinking about moving here to this city, or you just have any questions about what it's like to live here, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm a local real estate agent here in the area. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. But the most common kind of demographic that we see here in Sandy Springs is a lot of retirees, a lot of single people, a lot of transient people. And so we have a lot of retirees because there's a lot of condos here. It's not like super quiet like the country. Some retirees still want that kind of city life, that Fulton County kind of vibe. They don't want to be super out in the sticks. And so they choose Sandy Springs, and also the condo living with all of the amenities that come with condos you can find here in Sandy Springs. You also have a lot of young professionals who are just entering the workforce, and they are there for the amount of job employers and like the economy and wanting to be having that easy access to Atlanta. And so this is one reason why we have a lot of young professionals here. And then transient people, very often people who are here on assignment for a year or two and they don't plan on staying here long term. They choose Sandy Springs again because of the easy access to the different parts of the metro area, easy access down to the city of Atlanta, and when they are here on assignment for work, they're also tend to be in there for all of the economy reasons. Another big one is the hospitals. You have Northside Hospital and Emory St. Joseph's here in Sandy Springs, and so you have a lot of travel nurses. This is kind of a normal thing that I've seen very often, where travel nurses may come from other states and they come to these hospitals who may be short-staffed, and so they tend to also live in the Sandy Springs area because of the amount of healthcare providers and hospitals, emergency rooms that we have here. And this is also great for hybrid workers, people who may be going to the office 2 to 3 times a week. And so maybe they don't necessarily want to be in Atlanta, but they don't want to be too far from Atlanta because they're still going to be going into the office every once in a while. So for that reason, we have a lot of people moving to Sandy Springs. As we have more and more hybrid workers, very often they are choosing this city. Now, we should also look at the flip side of that. Not only is it that people are trying to get away from the busyness of Atlanta, but the flip side of that is that some people don't want to be all the way out in the suburbs. Suburbs like Alpharetta or Marietta or Roswell. Sometimes people kind of want to be in a little bit more densely populated area, but they don't quite want to be in the city of Atlanta, and so for that reason they choose Sandy Springs. This city really is a great mix of the two, city life and suburban life. It's not as densely populated as Atlanta, but it's not as quiet as a suburb like Alpharetta. And so Sandy Springs is a perfect blend of the two. You can kind of be very quick, hop, skip, and a jump, maybe even walkable distance to a grocery store or to a restaurant or whatever. Or you can be a quick 5 to 10 minute drive to a more residential area where there are parks and green space. And so you kind of have the best of both worlds in this city. And this is another big draw for many people who are moving here. Then we still have all of the amenities of a big city. We have the Whole Foods and the Trader Joe's. We have the Sandy Springs Performing Arts Center there in like the downtown city center area. They've got concerts and performances, and well, that's what they do in a performing arts center. They also have theater and all kinds of things there in the Performing Arts Center. And so this is a big one for many people. All of these kinds of amenities that you might find in a bigger city, you can still find here in Sandy Springs, even though it's sort of suburban as well. And then when it comes to green space, they have Morgan Falls, which is not really a waterfall. It's just a dam. It's the Chattahoochee River. And so they built like a power plant dam there, which kind of created a waterfall. And so it's not really a waterfall, but they would like you to think that it is. But in general, the Chattahoochee River runs through Sandy Springs. And so there are lots of options for outdoor recreation thing. Lots of hiking and jogging trails, walking trails along the Chattahoochee River that are paved. And then there's also a lot of playgrounds along the river as well. My kids love to play at those playgrounds. They're all over the place there. They have also lots of like on-ramps or boat ramps for like taking the canoe out there or taking kayaks out there. This is another thing that my family and I love to do. And so certainly a lot of outdoor recreation things to do along the Chattahoochee River. And so you have all of these things things coming together there in Sandy Springs, and it's no wonder why so many people are moving here. And while Sandy Springs sounds like it's a great place to live, and it really is, it's one of my favorite suburbs in all of Metro Atlanta, there are obviously some downsides to living here. I mean, the fact is that every city's got a downside. No city is absolutely perfect, and so we really need to understand what the downsides of living here are as well. If you're going to be moving to Sandy Springs, we don't want to just gloss over all of the bad things and just be like, oh yeah, Sandy Springs is the best city. We really need to talk about what the downsides are as well, so that you understand what it's really like living here. And some of these things would really turn off a lot of people. And you know, one of those things is the public schools. There are not really a lot of public schools here because there aren't a lot of families here. Again, young people, transient people, retirees, but the public school system and families is not something that you really find here in Sandy Springs. And there are many other downsides to living in Sandy Springs. In fact, I've made an entire video outlining the pros and the cons of living in Sandy Springs. You can check it out right here. I'll see you in the next one.